Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're going to be talking about the money in pro cricket today. I think we all know that it's a sport that people are really passionate about. For billions of people, it's a source of national pride. But if we take a step back from the excitement on the field, it's also a pretty complex and interesting career path, right?
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of us have wondered, how do these stars make so much money? I mean, obviously hitting a six or making an amazing catch is part of it. But there's got to be more to the story than that, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we've got some really interesting insights today that we can share with you. Looking at how all the different things these athletes do to earn a living, how they all fit together. And it's changed so much even in just the last few years. What's really remarkable is how many different ways these guys can make money these days. It's not just about what happens on the field anymore.
Yeah, we're going to break it all down for you.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. It's not just a salary for playing. There are contracts with different levels of pay, and then there's the whole world of T20 leagues. Those have really changed things. And of course, we can't forget about endorsements and sponsorships. Those are huge. And we'll look at how players are using the internet and what they do after they retire. And even how some of them are becoming investors. So yeah, it's a lot more complicated than you might think.
It really is.
And if you're the kind of person who likes to understand, how things work behind the scenes, or if you're just curious about the business side of sports in general, you're going to learn a lot today. I think we've uncovered some stuff that'll really surprise you.
Definitely. One of the things that really stands out is how these different ways of making money, they all kind of feed into each other. It creates this, this really dynamic environment. And for the guys at the top, the most successful players, it can be extremely rewarding, financially speaking.
Okay, so let's get into the details. Let's start with the basics. How much do players actually get paid for playing for their country? So we know that organizations like Cricket Australia or the BCCI in India, England, they all pay their players for those big international matches, the tests, the ODIs, the T20 internationals. But it's not like everyone gets paid the same amount, is it?
Oh, no, not at all. In fact, what we found in our research is that most countries actually have this kind of tiered system. It's all about your experience and how well you've been performing. They usually have categories like A plus A, B, and sometimes even more. It shows you how important you are to the team, how consistent you've been, all that stuff. And so the elite players, the A plus guys, they get much bigger contracts. Like in India, for example, an A plus player might get 5 times more every year than a C grade player. It's a huge difference. So being at the top really pays off.
That's a big gap. So basically, even if they don't play every single match, the players who are contracted to the national team have a kind of guaranteed income. It's like a safety net.
Exactly. That annual salary, the retainer, is the base. Then on top of that, they get paid extra for each match they actually play in. So that's the match fee. And then there are also bonuses for good performance. Like if the team wins a series, or if a player scores a century or takes a bunch of wickets, it all adds up.
So they get rewarded for being consistent and for hitting those big milestones.
Okay.
That makes sense. Now let's switch gears a little bit and talk about T20 leagues. I think it's fair to say that these leagues have really changed how much cricketers can earn. And the IPL in India is the big one, obviously. But there are a lot of others all over the world now, aren't there?
Yeah, it's a global phenomenon for sure. And it all started with the IPL, really. It was the first one to really attract huge amounts of money. With those auctions and drafts, the players can end up getting massive contracts, even if it's only for a few weeks of playing. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars sometimes. And it's not just the famous international stars, it's some of the younger up-and-coming local players too. So it's really interesting to see how this is changing the game. Now that there's so much money in these leagues, it makes you wonder, right? Does it make it harder for players to also play for their country? How do the cricket boards deal with that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the sums of money we're talking about are just mind-blowing. And like you said, it's not just the IPL. You've got the Big Bash in Australia, the CPL in the Caribbean, the PSL, the BPL. And now even places like the US, South Africa, and the UAE are starting their own leagues. It's really become like a world tour for cricketers. They have so many options.
Yeah, absolutely. And think about it. It's not just the money either. It's a chance for these players to travel to all these different places, experience different styles of cricket. They learn from different coaches and play with some of the best players in the world. And then, in addition to their salary, they can get match fees within the league, bonuses for doing well, and even a share of the prize money and if their team wins the whole thing.
So they could be making money almost year-round if they play in enough of these leagues.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much things have changed. I mean, compared to, 20 or 30 years ago when most players were just focused on playing for their country. This is a whole new level.
It is. It's opened up so many possibilities. Now let's talk about something that, for the most famous cricketers, can be even more lucrative than actually playing the game. And that's endorsements and sponsorships. This is a whole other world.
Right. It's crazy how much money is involved.
Yep.
Like once you've become a big name and you have millions of fans, brands will pay a fortune to have you associated with their product. And our research suggests that this is especially true in India, which is obviously a cricket-mad country. We're talking about guys like Virat Kohli, MS Dhoni, Rohit Sharma. They could be making more money from endorsements every year than from their contracts with the BCCI and the IPL combined.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible, isn't it?
It is. It shows the power of, of being a celebrity in a sport like cricket.
And it's not just sports brands either, is it? You see cricketers endorsing everything these days. Cars, electronics, even financial products. It seems like every company wants a piece of the action.
It's true. Their appeal is so broad. I mean, everyone knows these guys, right? So it's a really powerful way for brands to reach all sorts of different people.
And the ways they do these endorsements are so varied now, too. It's not just about having your name on a bat or a shirt anymore. You've got those big TV ads, of course. But then there's all this stuff they do on social media. And then they're making appearances at events and stuff. And some of them even have their own product lines, working with brands to create stuff. It's a whole industry in itself.
Right. It's all about building that personal brand, isn't it? Making yourself into a brand. And that brings us really nicely to the next thing we wanted to talk about. How players are using the internet to make money. I mean, these days, having a lot of followers online is almost as important as being good at cricket.
Yeah, totally. Think about it. Some of these guys have millions of followers on platforms like YouTube and Instagram. It's crazy. And they're putting out all sorts of content, They're making videos about their training, showing people what their life is like, just interacting with fans. And that attracts viewers, and then those viewers attract sponsors who want to advertise to them. It's like a perfect circle.
And they can make money directly from the platforms too, right? Like from the ads on their YouTube videos.
Right.
And, if we think back to what we were saying about personal branding, being online lets players connect directly with their fans. They control what people see and how they come across. And that makes them even more attractive to sponsors. It all helps build up their brand. And then beyond just social media, some players are going even further. They're licensing their names and images for different products, or they're starting their own companies. Clothing lines, coaching academies, even fitness stuff. It's all about turning yourself into a business, really.
Yeah, you got to be smart about these things. And all of that stuff you build up can last even after you stop playing, right? Which is a good thing to think about. Because for a lot of athletes, when they retire, it can be a difficult time financially. But it seems like cricketers have a lot of options.
Yeah, they do. And one of the most obvious paths is to go into commentary or analysis, especially for those big tournaments in the T20 leagues. The broadcasters love to have former players on their team because they understand the game so well. They've been there, done that. And those roles, especially for events like the World Cup or the IPL, they pay pretty well.
Makes sense. And then a lot of players go into coaching, right? Some of them end up coaching national teams or franchise teams around the world, or they might even work with younger players in academies. There are lots of different levels.
There are. It's a pretty natural transition for a lot of them.
And it's not just staying directly involved in cricket either, is it? We found examples of players who have written books, their autobiographies and things like that. And some of them write columns for newspapers or websites. Or they might go on TV or do podcasts and talk about their experiences. They've got interesting stories to tell. And some even do motivational speaking, talking to companies and groups about leadership and dealing with pressure. It's pretty cool.
It is. It shows that all the skills they develop as a professional athlete, they can be applied to all sorts of different things. They've built a profile and they've got a unique perspective.
Absolutely. And now things are changing even more. We're seeing players getting involved in some really interesting new ways of making money, especially with investments in business ventures.
Yeah, this is where it gets really exciting. More and more players are putting their money into businesses, especially startups in the sports world. Or they might even become part owners of teams in some of these newer leagues. It's a shift from just being a player to being more of a businessman, right? And it makes a lot of sense. It gives them a way to create long-term financial security. They're not just relying on those playing contracts and endorsements anymore. And as the whole sports and entertainment industry keeps changing, we're seeing more players getting involved in things like video games and digital collectibles. They might license their name for a game, or they might have their own line of merchandise. That can be a really good source of passive income because it's based on their brand and how well known they are.
Yeah, if people love you, they'll buy your stuff.
Yeah.
And we haven't even talked about prize money yet. That's a pretty big incentive for players to win those tournaments, isn't it?
Definitely. The whole team gets a share of that prize money, so it's a big deal.
It is. And then on top of that, you've got individual bonuses.
Mm-hmm.
Man of the match, man of the series, things like that. And even bonuses for breaking records.
Yeah, that can add up to a lot of money. And even though those bonuses might not be as much as, a big IPL contract or a sponsorship deal, they're still important. They motivate players to perform at their best.
Exactly. So when you put all of this together, it shows you that cricketers have so many different ways to earn a living these days. It's not just about how many runs you score or how many wickets you take. There are contracts with different pay grades, T20 leagues all over the world, endorsements, social media, things you can do after you retire, investments. It's pretty amazing how much the whole financial landscape has changed.
It has. It used to be so simple, right? But now you have to be savvy. You have to understand the business side of things. If you do, and you have the talent, of course, you can become incredibly wealthy.
Yeah, it's a world away from how things used to be.
Exactly. It's a much more complex and exciting world for cricketers now.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? It's clear that the financial side of professional cricket is pretty complicated. There are so many different ways for players to make money, both on and off the field. It's way more than just your basic salary.
It is, and it makes you think, right, what are the things a young cricketer needs to think about today compared to, maybe 20 or 30 years ago? And what might the future hold? What new ways of making money might come along in the next few years? I think it's a really interesting question.
It is. Lots to think about. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the financial side of cricket. It's been a fascinating journey.
It has.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive. Until then, take care.